Florence, a city of beauty, art, and timeless elegance. But beneath the polished marble and stunning frescoes lies a story of ambition, power, and secrets that shaped not just a city, but the very course of Western civilization. For centuries, one family ruled Florence with an iron fist wrapped in velvet, transforming it into a global powerhouse. Their legacy is so vast, so deeply woven into the very stones of the city, you cannot escape it. They were patrons, bankers, schemers, and popes. They were the Medici, and what they left behind might shock you. Number 1. The foundations of modern science. Florence, even before the Medici, possessed a spirit of inquiry, but the family's concentrated patronage provided the resources and intellectual space necessary for monumental scientific breakthroughs. The most famous example is Galileo Galilei, a man whose name echoes through the halls of scientific discovery. Galileo was born in Pisa, just a short distance from Florence, and spent a significant portion of his professional life under Medici protection and support. Cosimo II de' Medici, Grand Duke of Tuscany, appointed Galileo as the court mathematician and philosopher in 1610. This was not merely a ceremonial title. It offered Galileo financial stability and the freedom from teaching duties that allowed him to dedicate himself entirely to research. The Medici, particularly Cosimo II, were genuinely interested in Galileo's astronomical discoveries. They received copies of his groundbreaking book Sidereus Nuncius, or Starry Messenger, which detailed his observations of the moon's surface, the phases of Venus, and the discovery of Jupiter's 4 largest moons. Galileo even named these moons the Medicean stars in honor of Cosimo II and his brothers, a clever move that cemented his relationship with the powerful family. The court of the Grand Duke became a hub for scientific discourse and demonstration. Galileo would showcase his latest telescopic findings to the Medici family and their guests, transforming abstract theories into observable phenomena. He even gave Cosimo the second one of his sophisticated telescopes, an instrument that was at the cutting edge of technology at the time. This direct involvement from the ruling family was rare. While many rulers supported scholars, the Medici actively participated in the intellectual exchange, showing a genuine curiosity that went beyond mere status symbols. The Palatine Gallery in the Pitti Palace now houses some of Galileo's original instruments, including his 2 telescopes, one of which allowed him to make those historic observations of Jupiter's moons. These objects are not merely relics, they are tangible proof of the direct link between Medici patronage and the advancement of astronomical understanding. So beyond Galileo, the Medici's influence extended to other scientific fields. Ferdinando, the second de' Medici, Cosimo II's son, was particularly engaged with scientific exploration. He co-founded the Accademia del Cimento in 1657, which translates to the Academy of Experiment. This institution was revolutionary because it emphasized experimental methodology and direct observation over theoretical speculation. Its motto, Provando and Riprovando, meaning proving and proving again, encapsulated its commitment to empirical evidence. The Accademia del Cimento was one of the first organized scientific societies dedicated entirely to experimental science. Its members conducted experiments in thermometry, barometry, pneumatics, and magnetism. They developed standardized instruments like the thermometer and the barometer, crucial tools for future scientific investigation. These instruments, many of which were crafted in Florence by skilled artisans, became models for scientific apparatus across Europe. The spirit of the Accademia del Cimento directly contributed to the Enlightenment's emphasis on reason and empirical observation, shaping the very way science would be conducted for centuries. The original instruments from the Accademia can still be viewed at the Museo Galileo in Florence, showcasing the meticulous craftsmanship and the innovative spirit fostered by the Medici. The Medici also nurtured fields like botany and medicine. Cosimo I de' Medici established the Orto Botanico di Firenze, the Florence Botanical Garden, in 1545. This was not merely a pretty garden, it was a center for the study of medicinal plants and foreign species. Botanical gardens were vital for pharmacists, doctors, and naturalists, providing a living laboratory for research and education. The garden collected plants from across the globe, contributing to a broader understanding of biodiversity and medicinal properties. This focus on natural sciences extended to anatomy. Anatomical theaters, often funded by the Medici, allowed for human dissections, which were critical for understanding the human body's complexities, a practice that had been restricted for centuries. Medici doctors and scientists corresponded with leading minds across Europe, exchanging ideas and discoveries. The Medici's commitment to exploration and discovery, whether through supporting astronomers or botanists, established a foundation for future scientific inquiry that continues to influence the scientific method today. Their legacy lies in the tools, the institutions, and the very mindset they fostered, pushing humanity toward a deeper understanding of the natural world. Number 2, the birth of modern cuisine. Florence, known for its art and architecture, holds a surprising secret regarding its influence on something far more palatable: modern European cuisine. This culinary revolution is often attributed in part to Catherine de' Medici, a Florentine noblewoman who married Henry II of France in 1533, becoming Queen of France. Before Catherine's arrival, French court dining was a much simpler affair, often characterized by heavy meats, limited vegetables, and rustic preparation. Catherine brought with her a retinue of Florentine chefs, pastry makers, and culinary techniques that were far more refined and innovative than anything seen in France at the time. She introduced novel ingredients, sophisticated cooking methods, and a new approach to table manners that fundamentally transformed French gastronomy and, by extension, much of European dining. One of the most significant contributions attributed to Catherine and her Florentine entourage was the introduction of new ingredients. While some of these ingredients might seem commonplace today, they were revolutionary in 16th century France. For example, artichokes, spinach, and asparagus were not widely cultivated or consumed in France until Catherine's chefs popularized them. It is said that Catherine was particularly fond of artichokes and would eat them in abundance. The Florentine approach to vegetables was more diverse and nuanced, treating them as integral components of a meal rather than simple accompaniments. This shift in diet and ingredient availability gradually made its way from the royal court to the tables of the French aristocracy and beyond. Even the use of olive oil, a staple in Tuscan cooking, became more prominent in French kitchens due to Florentine influence, moving beyond its primary use in medicinal concoctions to an essential cooking fat. Beyond ingredients, the Florentines brought sophisticated cooking techniques and tools. The use of forks, a commonplace utensil in Renaissance Italy, was largely unfamiliar in France. French diners typically used knives and their fingers, and Catherine's insistence on using forks at court gradually introduced this more elegant and hygienic practice to French dining. Her chefs also introduced lighter, more refined sauces, contrasting with the heavier, spice-laden sauces common in medieval French cooking. They brought techniques like bechamel, a creamy white sauce, and methods for making delicate pastries and sorbets. The Florentines were masters of sugarwork, creating elaborate edible sculptures and confections that dazzled the French court. The very concept of a chef, a highly skilled professional cook trained in a specific culinary art, rather than a general kitchen worker, began to emerge with the specialized Florentine cooks Catherine brought with her. The formality and structure of dining also evolved under Florentine influence. The introduction of multiple courses served sequentially, a practice known as service à la Russe, that originated in Italy, replaced the medieval tradition of serving all dishes at once. This organized presentation elevated the dining experience from a mere sustenance ritual to a sophisticated social event. Table linens, ornate glassware, and delicate china, which were common in Florentine aristocratic households, became fashionable in the French court. These elements contributed to a more refined and aesthetically pleasing dining environment. The elaborate banquets, hosted by Catherine de' Medici, were legendary, meticulously planned affairs that showcased the artistic and culinary prowess of her Florentine staff. These events were not just about food, they were theatrical spectacles that reinforced royal power and taste. While some historians argue that Catherine de' Medici's direct culinary impact is overstated, the undeniable truth is that the 16th century marked a significant turning point in French and European cuisine. The influx of Italian ideas, ingredients, and chefs during the Renaissance, particularly through powerful figures like Catherine, cannot be ignored. The refined techniques, the emphasis on fresh ingredients, the development of sophisticated sauces, and the evolution of table manners that characterize modern Western cuisine all show strong parallels to practices that were already flourishing in Renaissance Italy, and particularly in Medici Florence. The Florentine culinary legacy carried across the Alps by a queen seeded a revolution in taste and dining that continues to influence the way people eat and appreciate food around the world, proving that the Medici's reach extended far beyond politics and art, even to the very plates on which meals are served. Number 3. The Grand Duchy of Tuscany. The Medici family's journey from powerful bankers to hereditary rulers is one of the most significant and enduring legacies in Florentine history, ultimately transforming the city-state into the Grand Duchy of Tuscany. This transition, a complex dance of power, diplomacy, and strategic maneuvering, established a centralized state that would last for over 2 centuries. Before the Medici, Florence was a republic, albeit one increasingly dominated by wealthy families. The Medici, through their immense financial power and shrewd political acumen, gradually consolidated their control, dismantling the republican institutions piece by piece. Cosimo the Elder, often considered the Pater Patriae, or father of the country, laid the groundwork in the 15th century, subtly pulling the strings of government while maintaining the outward appearance of a republic. His successors, particularly Lorenzo the Magnificent, perfected this art of unofficial rule, establishing a de facto Medici dynasty within a nominal republic. The true solidification of Medici rule into a formal principality occurred in the 16th century, largely through the efforts of Cosimo I de' Medici. After a period of exile and republican resurgence following the sack of Rome in 1527, the Medici were restored to power with the backing of Emperor Charles V and Pope Clement VII, a Medici himself. In 1530, Alessandro de' Medici, Clement VII's illegitimate son, was appointed Duke of Florence. This marked the official end of the Florentine Republic and the beginning of hereditary rule. Alessandro's assassination in 1537 led to the rise of Cosimo I, a young, ambitious, and ruthlessly effective leader who cemented the Medici's hold on power. Cosimo I understood that stability and recognition from powerful European monarchs were essential for the longevity of his rule. He systematically suppressed internal dissent, built a strong army, and embarked on a series of military campaigns to expand Florentine territory, most notably the conquest of Siena in 1555. Cosimo I's ultimate goal was to elevate his status beyond mere Duke of Florence, a title that implied limited authority. He tirelessly lobbied the Holy Roman Emperor and the Pope for recognition as a sovereign ruler of a larger entity. His efforts culminated in 1569, when Pope Pius V bestowed upon him the title of Grand Duke of Tuscany. This elevation was a momentous event, formally recognizing the Medici's dominion over a significant portion of central Italy, encompassing Florence, Siena, Pisa, and Livorno. The creation of the Grand Duchy of Tuscany fundamentally altered the political landscape of the region. As Florence, no longer just a powerful city-state, became the capital of a territorial state, a recognized player on the European stage. The Grand Ducal court became a center of diplomacy, attracting ambassadors and envoys from across the continent. The centralized power allowed for unified administration, taxation, and legal systems across the Tuscan territories, moving away from the fragmented local governance of the Republican era. The implications of the Grand Duchy extended far beyond mere titles. It brought a period of relative peace and stability to Tuscany after centuries of internal strife and external invasions. The Medici Grand Dukes, while sometimes autocratic, generally pursued policies that fostered economic development and cultural patronage within their domain. They invested in infrastructure such as the port of Livorno, which became a vital trading hub, and promoted industries like silk production and agricultural innovation. The Grand Ducal succession was hereditary, passing from father to son, which provided a continuity of governance that the old republican system often lacked. The Medici built magnificent palaces like the Pitti Palace, which became the official residence of the Grand Dukes, symbolizing their power and grandeur. They established a sophisticated bureaucracy and a network of officials to administer the vast territories, consolidating their authority. The Grand Duchy of Tuscany endured until 1737, when the main Medici line died out. It then passed to the House of Lorraine through diplomatic agreement, becoming a Habsburg dominion. However, the political structure, the territorial boundaries, and the centralized administration established by the Medici continued to shape Tuscany for generations. The very name Tuscany as a unified political entity, with Florence as its capital, is a direct legacy of the Medici's ambition and success in transforming a collection of city-states into a recognized principality. The Grand Duchy represented a shift from the medieval commune to the early modern state, a process that the Medici pioneered in their corner of Italy. Their enduring legacy is not just in the art they commissioned or the banks they ran, but in the creation of a modern state, the Grand Duchy of Tuscany, which forged the very identity of the region for centuries. Number 4, the Renaissance cityscape. Florence, as it stands today, owes its iconic appearance, its sweeping piazzas, its towering palaces, and its carefully planned urban spaces to the ambitious vision and immense wealth of the Medici family. Their patronage was not limited to individual artworks or buildings, it extended to the very fabric of the city itself, shaping Florence into the architectural marvel people admire today. The Medici transformed public spaces, commissioned grand residences that set new standards for aristocratic living, and invested in infrastructure that improved the city's functionality and beauty. This urban transformation was a deliberate projection of their power, wealth, and cultural sophistication. One of the earliest and most striking examples of Medici urban planning is the Palazzo Medici Riccardi. Commissioned by Cosimo the Elder in the mid-15th century, this palace was revolutionary for its time. Designed by Michelozzo, it established a new prototype for Renaissance urban palaces, a massive rusticated stone exterior giving way to an elegant inner courtyard. Its imposing presence immediately made a statement about the family's dominance in the Florentine cityscape. While Cosimo maintained a republican facade, the palace was a clear symbol of his immense influence. It also served as a model for subsequent Medici residences like the Palazzo Pitti. The Pitti Palace, a colossal structure on the Oltrarno side of the Arno River, was acquired by Eleonora di Toledo, wife of Cosimo I de' Medici, in the mid-16th century. The Medici expanded it significantly, transforming it into the lavish primary residence of the Grand Dukes of Tuscany. Its sheer scale and the Boboli Gardens, which spread out behind it, created a vast complex that visually dominated a large part of Florence, reflecting the Medici's ascendancy to Grand Ducal power. The Medici also redefined public spaces. Piazza della Signoria, already a central square, was further enhanced by Medici patronage. The placement of Michelangelo's David outside the Palazzo della Signoria, originally the seat of the Republican government, later used by the Medici, and Cellini's Perseus with the head of Medusa in the Loggia dei Lanzi, were deliberate acts that infused the public square with classical and allegorical meaning, celebrating heroism and perhaps subtly hinting at Medici order over chaos. While the David was a Republican symbol, its placement by the Medici, after they reclaimed power, recontextualized it within their narrative of a powerful, stable Florence. The Uffizi Gallery, a massive building complex originally designed by Giorgio Vasari for Cosimo I as administrative offices, was later converted by Ferdinando I de' Medici into one of the world's first public art galleries, showcasing the vast Medici art collection. Its long, grand corridors and the way it connects to the Palazzo della Signoria and the Ponte Vecchio via the Vasari corridor are masterpieces of urban design, creating a seamless flow of power and art within the city center. The Vasari corridor itself is a unique testament to Medici urban planning, built by Giorgio Vasari in just 5 months for Cosimo I in 1565. It allowed the Grand Duke to move safely and secretly between the Palazzo Pitti, the Uffizi, and the Palazzo della Signoria without having to mix with the common people below. This elevated passageway, incorporating existing structures like the shops on the Ponte Vecchio, is an astonishing feat of engineering and urban integration. It transformed the experience of traversing the city for the ruling family, literally putting them above the daily life of Florence. The corridor also allowed for private viewing of art, as it is adorned with portraits, showing the Medici's personal connection to their artistic treasures. Beyond grand palaces and corridors, the Medici also focused on practical urban improvements. They invested in public works, bridges, and fortifications, enhancing Florence's defenses and connectivity. The Lungarno, the promenades along the Arno River, were developed and improved, creating beautiful public spaces and better flood control. Their influence also extended to the smaller details of the city. The distinctive coat of arms of the Medici, with its red balls on a gold field, can be seen throughout Florence, adorning public buildings, fountains, and even private residences, a constant visual reminder of their enduring presence. The cityscape of Florence today, with its harmonious Renaissance architecture and thoughtful integration of public and private spaces, is a direct result of the Medici's strategic and sustained investment in their beloved city. They did not just build buildings, they built a city, transforming it into a living monument to their dynasty and a global example of Renaissance urbanism. Number 5, the Renaissance of learning. The Medici family cultivated an intellectual environment in Florence that propelled it to the forefront of the European Renaissance, specifically through their profound patronage of education and scholarship. They funded institutions, amassed vast libraries, and personally engaged with leading humanists, philosophers, and writers of their time, fostering a vibrant intellectual climate that valued knowledge, classical antiquity, and human potential. This commitment to learning was not merely a display of wealth. It was a core component of their identity and a strategic tool for enhancing their prestige and influence. One of the most significant and enduring educational legacies of the Medici is the Laurentian Library, or Biblioteca Medicia Lorenziana. Commissioned by Cosimo the Elder, and later greatly expanded by Lorenzo the Magnificent, this library was a treasure trove of classical and humanist texts. It was not merely a private collection, it was a carefully curated repository of knowledge designed to be accessible to scholars. Lorenzo, in particular, was passionate about acquiring rare manuscripts, sending agents across Europe to find ancient Greek and Roman texts. He even employed copyists to duplicate important works, ensuring that the library's collection grew exponentially. The library was eventually housed in a magnificent building designed by Michelangelo, attached to the Basilica di San Lorenzo. Its unique architecture, with its grand staircase and elegant reading desks, symbolized the reverence the Medici had for knowledge. The Laurentian Library became a crucial center for humanist scholarship, attracting scholars from far and wide who came to study its unparalleled collection, which included works by Plato, Aristotle, and classical Latin authors. The library made these ancient texts available to a wider audience, fueling the revival of classical learning that defined the Renaissance. Beyond the physical library, the Medici actively supported humanist academies and intellectual circles. Lorenzo the Magnificent himself, a poet and philosopher, established the Platonic Academy in Florence. This informal gathering of scholars, philosophers, and artists met in the Medici villas, particularly the Villa di Careggi. Led by figures like Marsilio Ficino, the Academy focused on the study of Plato's philosophy and the integration of classical thought with Christian theology. This intellectual synthesis, known as Neoplatonism, profoundly influenced Renaissance art, literature, and philosophy. Members of the Academy engaged in lively discussions, translated ancient texts, and produced original works that explored themes of beauty, love, and human dignity. The Academy was a crucible of ideas, where the greatest minds of the era could exchange thoughts freely, fostering innovation and challenging traditional ways of thinking. The Medici also demonstrated their commitment to education through their support for universities and schools. While Florence did not have a major university like Bologna or Padua, the Medici used their influence to attract leading professors and scholars to the city. They funded chairs in Greek, Latin, and philosophy, ensuring that a high standard of classical education was maintained. They also supported the education of promising young men, often members of lesser noble families or even talented commoners, by providing scholarships and opportunities for study. This patronage created a meritocracy, albeit a limited one, where talent could be recognized and nurtured regardless of social standing. The Medici believed that a well-educated populace, at least among the elite, contributed to the strength and prestige of the state. The Medici's impact on the dissemination of knowledge was also evident in their embrace of the printing press. While Johannes Gutenberg invented the movable type press in Germany, its widespread adoption and the production of printed books were enthusiastically supported in Florence under Medici rule. They recognized the power of this new technology to spread ideas and texts more widely and cheaply than ever before. Florentine printers, often backed by Medici funds, produced editions of classical texts, humanist writings, and religious works, making them accessible to a broader audience than handwritten manuscripts ever could. This contributed significantly to the spread of literacy and the explosion of knowledge during the Renaissance. The Medici's legacy in education and scholarship is not just about the buildings they funded or the books they collected. It is about the intellectual climate they fostered, the minds they nurtured, and the lasting impact they had on the way knowledge was preserved, disseminated, and valued in the Western world. They cultivated an environment where the pursuit of knowledge was celebrated, laying foundations for centuries of intellectual endeavor. Number 6, the Golden Age of Art and Architecture. Florence, known globally as a cradle of the Renaissance, owes its unparalleled artistic and architectural heritage directly to the Medici family. Their strategic, often extravagant, patronage fueled a golden age of creativity, drawing the greatest artistic minds to the city and fostering an environment where masterpieces were not just produced, but actively encouraged and celebrated. The Medici understood the power of art as propaganda, as a symbol of prestige, and as a tool for shaping public opinion, but they also possessed a genuine appreciation for beauty and innovation that pushed the boundaries of human expression. One of the most striking examples of Medici patronage is their relationship with Michelangelo Buonarroti. The young Michelangelo was taken into the household of Lorenzo the Magnificent, where he lived and studied as a protege. Lorenzo exposed him to classical sculpture from the Medici collection and introduced him to the intellectual circles of the Platonic Academy. This early exposure to humanist thought and classical art profoundly shaped Michelangelo's artistic vision. Later, it was Pope Leo X Giovanni de' Medici and Pope Clement VII Giulio de' Medici who commissioned Michelangelo for monumental works, including the Medici Chapel within the Basilica di San Lorenzo in Florence. This chapel houses the tombs of Giuliano and Lorenzo, Dukes of Nemours and Urbino, featuring Michelangelo's iconic allegorical sculptures of day, night, dawn, and dusk. The chapel is a testament to the Medici's desire for lasting glory and Michelangelo's genius in transforming marble into profound statements on life and death. The new sacristy, part of the chapel complex, also designed by Michelangelo, represents a pinnacle of Renaissance architectural and sculptural integration, a direct result of Medici ambition. Beyond Michelangelo, the Medici supported a constellation of artistic stars. Leonardo da Vinci, while not as closely tied to the Medici as Michelangelo, found opportunities in Florence under their general influence. Sandro Botticelli's most famous works, Primavera and The Birth of Venus, were commissioned for the Medici family, specifically for members of the cadet branch. These paintings, with their rich classical allegories and vibrant colors, embody the humanist spirit nurtured by the Medici. Even though their exact placement and original patrons within the family are debated, their association with the Medici household is undeniable, decorating their villas and symbolizing their refined tastes. Donatello's bronze David, another iconic early Renaissance sculpture, was also a Medici Commission, displayed in the courtyard of the Palazzo Medici Riccardi, a symbol of Florentine liberty and classical revival. The Medici also championed architectural innovation. The Basilica di San Lorenzo, the parish church of the Medici family, underwent significant renovation and expansion under their patronage. Filippo Brunelleschi, the genius behind the Florence Cathedral dome, designed the church's sacristies and part of the nave, showcasing his revolutionary use of classical forms and mathematical precision. Later, Michelangelo contributed the new sacristy and the Laurentian library, further integrating the church with Medici power and prestige. The construction of the Uffizi Gallery, designed by Giorgio Vasari for Cosimo I, initially as government offices, later transformed by the Medici into a public art gallery, was a monumental architectural undertaking. Its grand scale and central location reflect the Medici's ambition to create a unified administrative and cultural complex at the heart of their expanding state. The Medici approach to patronage was holistic. They did not just commission individual pieces. They cultivated entire workshops and artistic communities. They fostered a competitive environment among artists, pushing them to new heights. Their homes, like the Palazzo Medici Riccardi and later the Pitti Palace, were showcases for the finest art and decorative arts, setting trends for aristocratic residences across Europe. They understood that grand architecture and exquisite art were not just luxuries, but powerful symbols of power, prestige, and cultural sophistication. The very skyline of Florence, dominated by Brunelleschi's dome and dotted with Medici palaces, stands as a testament to their enduring architectural legacy. From the smallest devotional painting to the grandest public monument, the Medici's commitment to art and architecture indelibly stamped Florence with its Renaissance identity, creating a living museum that continues to inspire and awe visitors centuries later. Their vision transformed Florence into a global artistic beacon. Number 7, the flourishing of Florence's textile industry. Florence's economic powerhouse status during the Renaissance was built on many pillars, but none quite as vibrant and influential as its textile industry. The Medici family, through their banking enterprises and political influence, played a pivotal role in nurturing and expanding this industry, transforming Florence into a global center for luxury textiles, particularly silk and fine wool. This legacy is not merely about financial transactions. It is about the intricate network of artisans, merchants, and raw materials that dressed Europe's elite and defined Florentine economic identity for centuries. Before the Medici, Florence already had a strong tradition in wool production, with powerful guilds regulating quality and trade. However, the Medici recognized the immense potential in silk, a luxury commodity highly sought after across Europe. They strategically invested in the silk industry both directly and indirectly. Cosimo I de' Medici, in the mid-16th century, actively encouraged the cultivation of mulberry trees, essential for silkworm rearing, within Tuscany. He offered incentives to landowners and farmers to plant these trees, promoting a local source of raw silk, thus reducing reliance on expensive imports from the East. This governmental support helped to establish a robust and self-sustaining silk production chain, from the silkworms to the finished fabric. The Medici also facilitated the import of skilled artisans and innovative technologies. They encouraged weavers, dyers, and designers from other textile centers, such as Lucca and Genoa, to settle in Florence, bringing their expertise and techniques. The Florentine workshops became renowned for their mastery of complex weaving patterns, vibrant dyeing processes, and exquisite embroidery. Medici patronage meant that these artisans had guaranteed markets for their high-quality goods. The family themselves were prominent consumers, commissioning lavish garments, tapestries, and furnishings for their palaces and churches. This demand from the highest echelons of society set trends and created a constant need for innovation and excellence within the industry. Florentine silks became famous for their intricate brocades, velvets, and damasks, often featuring rich patterns that incorporated Renaissance motifs, classical designs, and the Medici's own coat of arms. The vibrant colors, achieved through sophisticated dyeing techniques using imported pigments, added to their allure. These luxurious fabrics were not just clothing, they were statements of wealth, status, and taste. Medici merchants and bankers, with their vast networks across Europe, acted as distributors, ensuring that Florentine textiles reached the most exclusive markets, from the French royal court to the English aristocracy and even further east. The Medici banking houses often extended credit to textile merchants and manufacturers, providing the necessary capital for large-scale production and trade. The influence of Florentine textiles extended beyond mere commerce. It shaped fashion and aesthetic sensibilities across Europe. The elaborate gowns, doublets, and furnishings seen in Renaissance portraits often featured fabrics that could have originated in Florence. Catherine de' Medici, upon her marriage to Henry II of France, brought not only Florentine culinary trends, but also a strong Florentine fashion sense to the French court, which greatly influenced European aristocratic dress. The Florentine style, characterized by its opulence and refined elegance, became a benchmark for luxury. The textile industry created a dynamic ecosystem in Florence, employing thousands of people, from silkworm breeders and spinners to weavers, dyers, tailors, and merchants. It generated immense wealth for the city, contributing significantly to the Medici's own coffers and allowing them to fund their ambitious artistic and architectural projects. Even today, though the scale has changed, the legacy of Florence's textile heritage endures. High-end fashion houses and artisan workshops in Florence continue to draw on centuries of textile expertise, maintaining a reputation for quality and design. The skills and traditions fostered under Medici patronage laid the groundwork for a textile industry that has remained a vital part of Florence's economy and cultural identity. The luxurious feel of a Florentine silk scarf, the intricate patterns of a brocade, or the vibrant hues of a dyed fabric all whisper stories of the Medici's enduring influence on one of the city's most beautiful and economically significant legacies. Number 8. The standard of the Italian language. The Italian language, as people know it today based on the Tuscan dialect, owes a significant debt to the Medici family's strategic patronage and promotion of literature, scholarship, and cultural unity. While the groundwork was laid by great writers like Dante Alighieri, Petrarch, and Giovanni Boccaccio centuries earlier, it was under Medici rule that the Tuscan dialect, particularly the Florentine variety, gained the momentum and prestige necessary to become the accepted literary and official language across the fragmented Italian peninsula. This linguistic standardization was a powerful, though often subtle, legacy that united disparate regions under a common tongue. The Medici, especially Lorenzo the Magnificent, were ardent patrons of literature and poetry. Lorenzo himself was a skilled poet, writing in the Florentine vernacular rather than Latin, which was still the language of high scholarship. His own works, like Canti Carnascialeschi carnival songs and L'Annunzia da Barberino, showcased the beauty and expressiveness of the Tuscan dialect. By writing and promoting works in the vernacular, Lorenzo elevated the status of the local tongue, demonstrating that it was capable of conveying complex emotions and sophisticated ideas, not just everyday conversation. This personal example from the ruling family was a powerful endorsement. Beyond his own writings, Lorenzo funded scholars who were dedicated to studying and promoting the great Tuscan literary figures. He provided financial support for the copying and dissemination of Dante's Divine Comedy, Petrarch's Canzoniere, and Boccaccio's Decameron. These three literary giants, all Florentine or closely associated with Florence, were revered for their use of the vernacular. The Medici understood that these works represented a literary heritage unique to their city, and that promoting them was a way to enhance Florentine prestige. They ensured that these foundational texts were widely available, which encouraged other writers across Italy to emulate their linguistic style. The establishment of the Accademia della Crusca in Florence in 1583, though founded after Lorenzo's death, was a direct continuation of this Medici-nurtured linguistic environment. Supported by the Medici Grand Dukes, particularly Ferdinando I and Cosimo II, the Accademia della Crusca was dedicated to preserving the purity of the Italian language using the Florentine dialect of the 14th century as its model. Its most ambitious project was the creation of the first comprehensive dictionary of the Italian language, the Vocabolario degli Accademici della Crusca, published in 1612. This dictionary served as a linguistic benchmark, codifying vocabulary and grammar based on the works of the Florentine masters. Its authority was immense, influencing writers, scholars, and educated people throughout Italy for centuries. The Accademia's rigorous efforts at linguistic standardization cemented the Florentine dialect's position as the lingua franca for literary and academic purposes. The Medici also used language as a tool of governance. As the Grand Duchy of Tuscany expanded, encompassing regions with their own distinct dialects, the Florentine dialect became the official language of administration, law, and diplomacy within the Grand Duchy. Official documents, court proceedings, and correspondence were increasingly conducted in Florentine. This institutional adoption further solidified its dominance and encouraged its use among the educated elite and bureaucrats throughout Tuscany. The Medici's vast diplomatic network also meant that their style of communication, rooted in the Florentine dialect, spread across European courts. The legacy of the Medici in shaping the Italian language is deeply intertwined with their broader cultural project. They created a center of learning, fostered intellectual exchange, and directly supported the creation of literary works and linguistic tools that elevated the Florentine dialect. This patronage ensured that the language of Dante and Petrarch did not remain a regional curiosity but blossomed into a national standard. When people today speak Italian, they are speaking a language whose very foundations were championed and meticulously refined under the watchful eye and generous hand of the Medici family, demonstrating their subtle yet powerful influence on the very words that define a nation. Number 9. The genesis of modern banking. The Medici family's most foundational and perhaps most revolutionary legacy lies in their transformation of finance, effectively laying the groundwork for modern banking practices. Before they were dukes or patrons of the arts, the Medici were shrewd and innovative bankers, and their bank, the Banco dei Medici, became the most powerful financial institution in Europe during the 15th century. Their methods, innovations, and sheer scale of operations changed the way money moved, was managed, and generated wealth, creating a system that continues to underpin global finance today. The core of the Medici's financial innovation was the establishment of a sophisticated multi-branch banking system. Unlike earlier, more localized moneylenders, the Medici Bank operated with branches in major European cities like London, Bruges, Lyons, Geneva, and Venice. Each branch operated with a degree of autonomy but remained centrally controlled from Florence. This network allowed them to manage a vast flow of capital, facilitate international trade, and mitigate risk by diversifying their investments across different markets. This decentralized yet coordinated structure was groundbreaking, resembling the global banks of today. They developed systems for transferring funds between branches without the physical movement of large sums of cash, a significant advancement in security and efficiency. One of the Medici Bank's most critical innovations was the widespread adoption and refinement of the letter of exchange, or bill of exchange. This financial instrument allowed merchants to deposit money in one city and withdraw it in another, avoiding the dangerous practice of carrying large amounts of gold or silver across bandit-ridden lands. A merchant in Florence could pay the Medici Bank, receive a letter of exchange, travel to London, and present the letter to the Medici branch there to receive their funds. This system not only streamlined trade, but also laid the groundwork for modern international credit and currency exchange. The Medici often charged a fee for this service, but the convenience and security made it indispensable for merchants. The Medici were also pioneers in accounting practices. While not inventing double-entry bookkeeping, they were among its earliest and most effective proponents. This system, which records every transaction as both a debit and a credit, provided an accurate and detailed overview of the bank's financial health, allowing for better management, risk assessment, and profit calculation. Their meticulous ledgers and accounting methods became models for financial institutions that followed. This systematic approach to financial record-keeping was crucial for managing their vast and complex operations. Their lending practices were also innovative. While the church frowned upon usury lending money at interest, the Medici circumvented this by charging exchange fees or commissions on letters of exchange and other services, effectively earning a profit on their loans. They also provided loans to rulers, popes, and powerful families, often in exchange for political favors, monopolies, or control over lucrative resources like alum mines. Their financial power gave them unprecedented political leverage, demonstrating the intertwined nature of finance and power in the Renaissance. Cosimo the Elder, in particular, was a master of this, using his bank's wealth to influence elections, support allies, and even fund military campaigns, all while maintaining the facade of a private citizen. The Medici bank's influence extended to currency. The Florentine florin, a gold coin first minted in 1252, became the standard currency for international trade across Europe, thanks in no small part to the Medici's banking activities. Their widespread network and reputation for reliability meant that the florin was universally accepted and trusted, acting as a stable medium of exchange in a volatile economic landscape. The Medici's success in banking financed their cultural patronage, their political ascent, and their lavish lifestyle. While the bank eventually declined in the late 15th century due to mismanagement by later generations and changing economic conditions, its impact on the evolution of finance was irreversible. The systems, instruments, and practices perfected by the Medici Bank established the foundational principles of modern capitalism, credit, and international finance, a legacy that continues to shape the global economy today. Number 10. Public spectacles and festivals. The Medici family understood that power was not just about wealth or military might. It was also about spectacle, about captivating the public imagination and demonstrating their grandeur through lavish display. Their patronage of public festivals, elaborate ceremonies, and courtly entertainments transformed Florence into a city of unparalleled pageantry, laying the groundwork for many forms of modern entertainment and public performance. These spectacles served as powerful tools for political legitimation, social cohesion, and cultural expression, etching themselves into the very memory of the city. The Medici-era festivals were far from simple parades. They were meticulously planned, multifaceted events that combined art, music, theater, and elaborate stagecraft. These included annual carnivals, religious processions, triumphal entries for visiting dignitaries, and celebrations for weddings, births, and other significant family events. For instance, the wedding of Ferdinando I de' Medici to Christine of Lorraine in 1589 was a breathtaking series of events featuring theatrical performances, musical intermezzi, and mock sea battles on the Arno River. These celebrations were not merely for the elite. They often involved the entire city, with temporary arches, elaborate floats, and street decorations transforming Florence into a stage. One of the most enduring legacies of these Medici spectacles is their contribution to the birth of opera. The Florentine Camerata, an informal group of intellectuals, musicians, and poets who gathered under the patronage of Giovanni de Bardi and Jacopo Corsi, both closely connected to the Medici, sought to revive ancient Greek drama. They believed that Greek tragedies were sung, not just spoken, and experimented with a new style of sung drama called drama per musica, which evolved into what is now known as opera. The first operas, such as Jacopo Peri's Daphne, around 1598, now largely lost, and Eurydice 1600, were performed for Medici court events. These early operas, often commissioned for weddings or state occasions, were presented with elaborate sets, costumes, and special effects, showcasing the cutting edge of artistic and technical innovation. The Medici's willingness to fund these experimental musical dramas provided the vital environment for opera to develop and flourish, becoming a major art form that spread across Europe. Beyond opera, the Medici supported various forms of public entertainment and sport. The Calcio Storico Fiorentino, a violent and chaotic form of early football or rugby played in Piazza Santa Croce, was a popular event, often featuring the Medici themselves as spectators or even participants. While the game had older roots, the Medici's involvement and promotion ensured its prominence as a Florentine tradition. They also organized jousts, tournaments, and parades of costumed figures, which captivated the public and served to demonstrate the Medici's power and the military might of the state. These events were carefully orchestrated to convey specific messages of civic pride, stability, and the benevolence of the ruling family. The role of artists and engineers in these spectacles was crucial. Architects like Bernardo Buontalenti, who was a favorite of the Medici, were not just designing buildings, they were master stage designers, creating elaborate sets, ingenious machinery for special effects, and transforming public spaces into grand theatrical venues. Painters created backdrops and costumes, while musicians composed new works for specific events. The collaboration among these different artistic disciplines, fostered by Medici patronage, led to advancements in stagecraft and visual effects that influenced theater and performance for centuries. The meticulous documentation of these events, often through engravings and written accounts, provides invaluable insight into Renaissance performance practices. The legacy of the Medici in public spectacle is not just about the historical events themselves, but about the lasting impact on how people conceive of entertainment, celebration, and the use of public space for performance. From the grandeur of the city's squares, hosting massive events, to the intimate courtly performances that birthed opera, the Medici's commitment to pageantry helped shape the cultural landscape of Florence. They understood that spectacle was a powerful tool for governance, for projecting an image of magnificence and stability, and for creating a collective sense of identity among their subjects. Their vision transformed Florence into a city where life itself was a stage, leaving an indelible mark on the history of performance and celebration.